Welcome back to another episode of Bills by Bailey. Today we're going to be replacing the leaf spring bushings in this 89 Toyota pickup. So follow along today while we lower these leaf springs, replace the bushings, and put in some new energy suspension urethane bushings. So I'm going to start in the very back. We're going to start with the shackle, and we're going to remove the two nuts of the insides on both sides of the car. It's going to allow the two bolts that are in here connected together with this outer crossbar. It's going to allow those to stay in. I've already supported the axle in the middle as well as supported the frame in front of the suspension. So that way whenever we take this out in a second, the axle is not going to drop all the way to the floor. It's going to rest on some jack stands holding it in almost this exact same position, which will allow us to put everything back very easily. Now that we have the nuts off of the bolts, if these bars aren't wiggling or moving for you very easily, then go ahead and take a pry bar and a hammer and tap on them, and they should just kind of slide off. Keep in mind the orientation in which they come out of the truck, and then with the load and stuff off of the axle, you should be able to start tapping on the bolts, and they should start sliding out the other end. Should be fairly simple. You might have to use a pry bar as well to get them off the other side. Now that the brackets are removed from the truck, I have removed all of the black rubber bushings. They kind of just fell out. Some of them were squished and totaled. And we're going to be replacing them with these red urethane energy suspension bushings. And those are a lot more durable. They're going to last a lot longer. I've also taken and I've painted the parts up that were a little rusty, knocked them down with a wire wheel, and got them prepped and ready to go back in. Now the next step is to make sure everything's nice and clean, and then apply the grease that comes with it as much as you possibly can. Try to get a lot on there because that allows this stuff to kind of slide together real easy without having to use extra tools. You don't really want to try to find something to get in there and squeeze this stuff together unless you have to. So the more grease will allow them to slide easier. Now that everything's greased up, we're going to go ahead and try to slide all this stuff in together as easy as we can get it. Now we have the bracket back on. As you saw, I had to kind of get a little creative to get that to squeeze together. That's the reason why we use all that extra grease. So both sides are on, the nuts are on, and it's torqued down to strong. So yeah, so we got both of those on the back. Now we need to move to the front. So there's only one bolt in the front. So you've got to take off the nut on the inside and the bolt all the way through the outside. And then we'll replace the bushing that's on the inside. So go ahead and get yourself your two 19 millimeters. Get that thing broke loose and get it knocked out. So with this set of urethane bushings, we have to take out the old ones completely, including the old metal shield around the outside. That bushing also has to come out. So I'm going to take my drill around the rubber bushing, drill as much of that rubber out as possible, punch it out, and then take my Sawzall and cut a slit in the bottom and a slit in the top to collapse that outer barrel. And then we will be able to push that out with a hammer and a chisel or a pry bar or whatever. We'll be able to push that out and get that completely out of there. So these will push right into place where they're supposed to be. Just like the ones on the back, we're going to go ahead and we're going to grease the insides of these along with the outsides of the bushings, and these have an actual metal sleeve that we're going to slide onto the inside, so we're going to grease those up as well as we press these in. All of this should be able to be done by hand, and then we'll be able to just lift it up in place and put our bolt back in. That's going to do it for this episode of Builds by Bailey. Go ahead and make sure you put the bolts back in where they came out. Just reverse what you did to get there. Some tips I would say for doing this job if you're doing it by yourself. If you go ahead and detach the shocks, it allows the axle to kind of droop a little bit more. But also keep in mind of other things that might get caught, like your brake lines and stuff like that. You don't want to rip any of that stuff out, so be very cautious. Once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.